In this video, we're going to experiment a little. We're going to take this image and turn it into this final manipulation without ever touching Photoshop. Hello, my friends. My name is Pi. I am the voice behind the Think Stupid Simple podcast and the face behind SLR Lounge and Born Uncreative photography tutorials. So look, let's go ahead and dive straight into this. I have prepared an exercise file for y'all, so go ahead and grab that now. We're going to be working in Lightroom to create a look, and then we're going to go into Luminar AI, where we're going to use Luminar's AI to manipulate our image without using Photoshop. Then we're going to take it back to Lightroom for a final bit of tweaking. All right, let's go ahead and just jump straight into this. So I'm going to assume that you already have the file downloaded. Now, the first step that we're going to do is, let me go ahead and shrink all these other panels. What I want you guys to do is apply any look that you'd like, okay? This can be anything. You can do anything you'd like to tweak the image. Just dial in the color the way that you like to. And this is really the way that I prefer using Luminar. Is I like to use it in addition to my Lightroom workflow. So that way I can have all of my presets and color and everything that I want, and then utilize Luminar for all of the really cool AI-based processing that it offers, while still retaining Lightroom to kind of be my cataloging system and also my system for fine-tuning after the fact. So what I'm going to do is use Visual Flow Presets Pastel Pack, and I'm going to apply HDR Natural. So what this is going to do is kind of give it a very kind of cool overall tone. And then I'm also going to add in profile correction real quick. So let's just put in profile correction, and then I'm going to press R, correct the horizon line. So once again, you're just going to dial in any settings that you want here. Okay, so you don't have to be using Visual Flow. I just want you to dial in some sort of setting. Go ahead and set the appropriate white balance. So for me, I'm going to dial this a little bit on the warmer side. Okay, and right about here is totally fine. So this is just the original image, and this is kind of that cool colored look for the image. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is just right click, go edit in, and then select Luminar AI. For the file copy options, I usually like to keep this as a JPEG. sRGB is fine, and then 8-bit and 300 DPI. Give that a second. I'll be here waiting. Alrighty then, we are into Luminar. Let's go ahead and select the edit panel or tool, or whatever this is. Now you'll notice that my set of tools looks a bit different. So if you haven't actually updated to 1.01, this is a good time to do so, so you see the exact same thing that I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do is, let's get funky. Let's go straight down to the creative side, and let's look at sky and augmented sky. We also have atmosphere. So all of these are using AI to basically, drop in whatever we'd like. So if I want, I can go and select a nice blue sky or a dramatic sunset. But you know what? I've already played with these a bit. So I'm actually going to start with something else. So let's do this. Let's go, I don't want any sky for right now. So let's leave that the way it is. I'm going to go to augmented sky, and let's see what other stuff we can put in. I can put in an aurora in this. That's pretty cool. Balloons, nay. Clouds, those are kind of cool. This would be cool if we can add multiple clouds. I don't think we can quite yet. Lightning is interesting. What? I think some of these might be new actually. What? We can kind of turn this into like a storm image. Okay, or we can put, planet. What is, okay, planet is ridiculous. This is kind of fun. I want to see mountain. Oh my goodness. Okay, now this is cool. I mean, we can put in mountains and basically transport them. Okay, that's rad. This is really fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with this mountain. Can I actually add, I think I can put the sky over it too. So let's see. Dramatic sunset. What the heck? Okay, now we're gonna have to do some tweaking to these, obviously. But let's find one where the light's coming from the right side. I think we could use this one and just flip it, actually. So let's flip this guy. So let's see if the sunlight... See, on the mountain, the sunlight is coming from, I believe, the left side. So that might kind of get a little bit wacky over here. So let's see. Okay, I think we can get this one to look pretty convincing. Let's try this one. Okay, so there's a couple different things that we have going on. Luminar does a decent job of like kind of setting it in place, but we do have some areas that we need to tweak and adjust. So let's start with, I'm going to turn this guy off, and let's just start with the mountain first. Okay, so I'm going to go to Augmented Sky, and first thing I'm going to warm it up so it kind of matches the foreground warmth. Right about here is kind of where I would want it. I'm also going to turn on this relight. So what we're going to do is use relight to kind of get it to a sort of nice fade where it feels like it looks realistic based on the scene. So if the water's dropping back into the distance that far, we probably want this to be somewhere around here where it's kind of like nice and faded in the background. Advanced settings, let's see if we can do some mask refinement. I like the way that, okay, so I'm going to turn mask refinement all the way up, and it seems like it's getting a better blend. And then let's do a tiny bit of defocusing. So I don't want to go too far because that's not going to look realistic. So if this was shot on a wide angle lens, the mountain would just barely be a little bit softer. Okay, so we're going to go right there. And I believe, okay, cool. So I can flip this. So I'm going to flip that so that way when I drop in the sun, it's going to look like it's coming from the right side. Okay, so this is cool. Place object, I think we're good where it's at. Okay, the only tweak that I want to make now is you'll notice that the couple is kind of, they're kind of bright, and so what's happening is I think they're getting a little bit masked out, or we need to mask them out. So let's do this. We're going to go to Paint Mask, and I'm going to go to the Erase tool, and let's zoom in on them. So let's go to like 100% and go right to where they are, and then I'm going to shrink down. Oh, you can use your mouse wheel too. I'm going to shrink down the radius of the brush a bit. And then we're just going to subtract this off of them. Okay. I don't think this has to be perfect. You can also use your brackets to add and subtract. And I believe the opacity is down right now. Let's go ahead and just turn up the opacity a bit. Okay. This doesn't need to be too perfect. Yeah, that's about right. What we just want to make sure is that the edges are about right. Okay, so what we're going to do is flip this back to paint, and I'm going to use the feathered edge just to kind of paint over the edge of them. Okay, so you'll notice that like we kind of want this subtle blend on their outside edges to kind of bring us into the scene. So I'm just going to shrink this down and kind of move it around to kind of blend their edges a little bit. I just don't want their dress and bodies to be like kind of transparent, which what we were getting before. Don't forget to kind of paint into the gaps, because that's one of the things that's most noticeable in shots like this. And see, it's really the white dress and this kind of white piece here. Those are the things that I'm kind of most worried about, is like this spot right here. Okay. See, I want the whites to be white and not to show through blue in the background. That looks good. Okay. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. If you're here just for the voice, have I put you to sleep yet? Are you in a restful state? Look at this. This is ridiculous. The amount of work that I've put into this and how realistic it looks. It's kind of wigging me out a little bit. This is the future of where software is going. I mean, it's going to be more so about, it always kind of goes that way, right? The democratization of production, meaning things just get easier and easier, and really as an artist everything becomes about your vision versus about the process. The process has become easy. So now what we're going to do is do a little bit of let's extend the horizon blend quite a bit. I'm also going to move the horizon position. Let's see if we want to move it up a little bit, because it's kind of blending. Let's see, I like where it's at, but we're just gonna have to feather it actually. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of tweaking there. So let's do this. I'm gonna reduce the relight scene down. I'm gonna increase sky global. And what we're gonna do first is let's go ahead and add a mask. Let's paint a graduated mask that just kind of fixes most of our issues. So we're gonna paint that graduated mask about here and maybe pull it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so what I'm doing is allowing it to subtly kind of blend off as it drops into the image. And that looks really nice. Okay, now let's go ahead and accept that mask. And then what we're gonna do is add, I wanna see if I can do like a tiny bit, oops, of sky defocus, like maybe 1. See, even at 1, I wanna, hopefully the Skylum team will see this, because even at 1, it's a little bit too defocused, so I'm gonna leave that set to 0. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and bring up the atmospheric haze. This is gonna allow the sky to kind of brighten and to sort of match the same toning as the foreground and everything else in the shot. And this is starting to look really nice. I'm laughing because it's like, it's so easy to get to this point. So photojournalists out there are probably going to be really upset about this. I understand. I understand. Okay, so let's do, I'm actually good with everything. I just want to zoom in on them and make sure that there's nothing, no clouds going over them, no nothing. They look good. Okay, so while we're here, I'm going to do this. Let's go back into, oops, I don't want to keep zooming in. Let's zoom out just a bit, and let's go back into Enhance, and let's just bring up our Enhance a little bit. So I'm going to do a few things now inside of Luminar to kind of get the blend between the foreground and the background to be a little bit more natural, okay? So I'm going to pull up on the shadows a little, okay, because the image overall is like very bright in the background. And I'm going to reduce a bit of the contrast. Actually, I want to reduce contrast via another mean. So let's leave that where it's at. Okay, we're also going to bring up the highlights a little bit. What I'm doing, you can see kind of how I'm getting the two to blend better by sort of matching contrast levels between these. Okay, exposure and everything is good here. So on the curves, what I could do is actually flatten out the contrast a little. Okay, so I'm going to lower my contrast in the highlights. I'm going to raise my shadows just a bit. And what this is going to do is just kind of flatten the image a little bit. I don't want to go too far with this. I just want to flatten a tiny bit. Okay. Right about here is where we start to get a really nice blend. That looks nice. That looks nice. Okay. Let's bring structure up a little bit. And then the last thing, I kind of want to do a little bit of mood toning. So I'm going to choose a LUT, and the LUT is just going to be a subtle amount of color. So I'm going to choose a LUT that kind of already matches pretty nicely with this. Let's go with Los Angeles. And all I want to do with that LUT is just use a little bit of that color to make the foreground, the background blend, okay? So right around 10 is already enough. And that's looking good. So I'm going to click Apply. And this is where we can now go back into Lightroom with these changes dialed in, and we can do whatever final color tweaks we want there. So let's do that. Okay, so now I'm back into Lightroom, right? So I have the image loaded up. Let's go ahead and press Shift F just to go full screen. And what I'm gonna do now is the same technique I've kind of showed before is twice baking. So once we bring it back into Lightroom, we're gonna add another preset over it. Again, it can be anything you'd like. What I'm gonna do now is use Visual Flow's Modern Pack. And this is gonna, once again, give a nice subtle bit of warmth and toning to the image that kind of pulls everything together. From here, I'm gonna zoom in, just adjust my white balance to a place where I like it. This is so ridiculous. I can't believe, yeah, this is, I'm kind of tickled pink at this. Tickled pink, is that a saying? I'm gonna bring this right over our subjects. And let's go ahead and just increase the strength of this. And actually what I'm going to do is just do a subtle amount there, and let's do a graduated burn from the bottom and one from the top. Okay, right about there. And let's burn the left side of the image down a little bit too. Bring it up a tiny bit, and we'll take the right side down just a bit. So now I can see a little bit of a vignette over them. So what I want to do is just kind of reduce that effect a little bit. So I want the attention to be very subtly pulled into them in the shot. And what we end up with is this, which looks like it was shot between a cross of Laguna Beach, Hawaii, maybe a little bit of Alaska in there. This place does not exist, but it sure does look like a place that I would want to exist. I'm going to reduce a little bit of the contrast. And let's see here. I think I'm very happy with this. Let's do a little bit of dehaze for a little added oomph. Okay, so why don't we look at where we started? So this was the originally colored version. So this is the actual OG original version right here. And there's the final. So no Photoshop. We didn't really have to do much of any crazy masking, nothing. We mostly did just selecting drop downs, sliders, and got to this point. So anyway, this was a fun experiment. It's really cool to see how far Luminar AI has come, what it's enabled us to do. And I'm really looking forward to just everything going forward in terms of software, making this entire artistic process that much easier, that much smoother, to the point where you really just need to have a cool vision and execute on that vision. I hope you all enjoyed. What we're going to do is link up all the software that we use. So if you want to check out Luminar AI, we have descriptions to it in the video. So just look down below. Hopefully you guys got the exercise files as well. Any other information we'll place down there. If you guys enjoyed, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.